This happened just a few months ago. I was 32 and thought a change of scenery would help me focus on my geological studies. I arrived in a small town surrounded by thick woodlands. The buildings were old, with peeling paint and broken signs. My temporary home was a cabin that looked more worn than the rest. It felt isolated, but I thought that was exactly what I needed. I set up my things in the cabin. It was quiet, just me and the woods. When night fell, I tried to settle in. The sounds outside changed, too. I heard faint tapping against the walls. I thought it was the cabin settling. Old buildings make noises, right? I shrugged it off, but glanced around every so often, hoping to see nothing. A few nights later, the tapping was louder. It became rhythmic, like a heartbeat echoing through the silence. I felt a tightness in my chest. I stepped outside. The moonlight shone through the trees, but I didn't see anything. The air felt thick. I went back inside. Something felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. As days turned into weeks, the sounds continued. I didn't sleep well. Each night brought the same thumping, and once I thought I heard whispers. I stood still, straining my ears. I wasn't sure if I was really hearing something or if it was all in my head. I felt uneasy, almost paranoid. One evening, I returned to the research site. I had been studying strange rock formations nearby. I noticed peculiar markings. They seemed to shift when I looked away. I approached one cautiously. Was I imagining it? Maybe shadows were playing tricks on me. Chills ran down my spine. That night, the tapping returned, louder and more urgent. I wrapped my arms around myself, fighting the chill. Then I heard what sounded like laughter, soft and distant. I peered into the moonlit trees, searching. My breath quickened. Every instinct screamed at me to run. That's when I saw movement. A figure lingered at the edge of the woods. I thought I saw eyes glinting in the darkness. I couldn't breathe for a moment. I blinked, and then the figure faded. I felt watched, not just by the trees, but by something unseen. Then I heard a voice whispering my name. I turned sharply. The cabin loomed behind me, silent, just a building. No one was there. My heart raced. Why did I come here? What was lurking in this place? I turned back to the woods. I couldn't shake the feeling someone was out there. I began to back away, but a rustling sound broke the stillness. I froze. The laughter returned, closer this time. It was a cold, playful sound. I called out, "Hello?" My voice echoed in the quiet. No answer. I took a step back, then another. But as I turned to run, something caught my eye. A shadow darted between the trees, quick like a flash. I felt panic rise in my chest. I turned around, desperate to escape, but just then I realized I wasn't alone. More shapes appeared in the trees, watching, waiting. They were staring. I couldn't tell if they were human or something else. Whatever they were, I could feel their gaze piercing through me. I forced myself to move, but it felt like the ground was pulling me back. I had uncovered something I wasn't meant to find, and in that moment, I knew I was far from safe in my cabin. I stumbled back, adrenaline pumping through my limbs. The shapes in the trees loomed large and menacing, but I couldn't see them clearly. I needed to escape. I turned quickly and sprinted toward the cabin, my heart pounding in my ears. As I fumbled with the door, I glanced back. The figures had advanced, their forms shifting among the trees. It was like they moved with the shadows, merging into the darkness. My breath caught. I finally managed to yank the door open and slammed it shut behind me. I leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. The cabin felt suffocatingly small. I scanned the room for some kind of weapon, but found nothing, just my gear, scattered notes, and the oppressive silence wrapping around me like a thick fog. I pressed my back against the door and closed my eyes, trying to calm my racing heart. Maybe it was all in my head. Maybe I was just exhausted. Then I heard the tapping again, louder, more insistent. It resonated from all around me, not just the walls but the windows too. Panic rose within me. I felt trapped, both in the cabin and in my own mind. I crept over to the nearest window, heart thundering. I peeked out through a small gap in the curtains. What I saw sent chills down my spine. The figures were closer now, moving seamlessly through the trees, their shapes barely discernible. They were no longer just shadows. They were humanoid but twisted, almost too linear, as if they weren't fully formed. The laughter returned, echoing in the night, high-pitched and chaotic. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. I needed to think. I grabbed my backpack, rifling through it for anything that might help. My flashlight. It felt silly, but maybe light would frighten them off. I clicked it on, the beam cutting through the darkness. Steeling myself, I shined the light outside. For a moment anything could happen, but when the beam hit the edge of the woods, a blood-curdling shriek pierced the night. The figures flinched, their laughter stopped. They seemed to recoil from the light, merging back into the shadows. I felt a rush of hope, but couldn't let my guard down. But then something else caught my attention. Low whispers grew increasingly clear, intertwining with the laughter that had faded. "Join us!" they beckoned. It was as if the forest itself was trying to lure me in, promising something I couldn't understand. Frantically, I backed away from the window, the flashlight trembling in my grasp. The tapping resumed, more chaotic now, as if they were trying to get my attention. My heart raced again. I had to get out of here, but the only way was through the woods where they lurked. I darted around the cabin, searching for another exit. Then I noticed a door at the back. I tested the handle. It opened. Fresh air rushed in, and for a moment it seemed like my lifeline. But the thought of stepping out into the unknown sent a wave of dread through me. As I hesitated, I heard it. A figure had moved inside the cabin. Something was behind me now. I gripped the flashlight tighter, too scared to turn around. The sense of dread twisted in my stomach. I took a deep breath and opened the door. But when I turned around to look back, they were there, just behind me. Their eyes glinted, reflecting the flashlight's beam. That's when I knew there was no escape. I lunged out the door, panic fueling my every movement. My foot struck the forest floor, and without looking back, I ran into the dark embrace of the trees. Branches whipped against my arms and face as I frantically dodged them. The sounds behind me, the tapping and laughter, grew louder, and I felt their presence closing in. I forced myself to remember the layout of the woods. There was a loop trail about half a mile away that could lead me back to the main road, if I could just make it there. Just then the flashlight flickered. A surge of dread rushed through me, but I slapped the side of the device. The light steadied, but for how long? I had to keep moving. As I sprinted deeper into the woods, I heard the whispers again. "Join us!" they called, seductive and eerie, swirling around me like a thick mist. The cadence pricked at my thoughts, threatening to drag me under. I shook my head. No, I wouldn't listen. I had to focus. Just then, my foot caught on a root and I stumbled forward, hitting the ground hard. The flashlight slipped from my grip and went out. Panic surged anew. The suffocating darkness wrapped around me like a blanket. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing, and reached for the flashlight. But the shadows shifted around me. I could feel them closing in. Then everything went eerily still. The woods, once alive with sound, fell silent. I couldn't hear the laughter anymore, not the whispers. My breath hung heavy in the air. Had they vanished, or were they simply waiting for my next move? I strained to see in the dark, my mind racing. I needed light, needed to see, so I dropped to my knees and fumbled in my backpack for the spare batteries I always carried. My fingers shook as I replaced them in the flashlight and clicked it on. A beam of weak light flickered back to life. It was dim, but it was something. That's when I saw it, a figure standing just beyond the reach of my light. Tall and thin, its outline twisted unnaturally, as if it was made of shadows. My heart dropped as its head tipped slowly to one side, a sickening grin spreading across its face. Its eyes glowed softly, reflecting the little light I had. I stumbled back, pressing myself against a nearby tree, my breath hitching in my throat. It took a step closer. My instinct screamed at me to run, to escape. But as the figure moved, I noticed something behind it. More figures emerged from the trees, each one grotesque and fluid, merging with the night. Fight or flight. My body pulsed with adrenaline. I pointed the flashlight straight at them, the beam wavering. A horrible screech erupted from their mouths, high-pitched and piercing as they recoiled once more. But I didn't have time to relish that moment of power. I bolted again, pushing through the underbrush, branches slapping my face. The trail was close. I could feel it in my bones. Every instinct pushed me forward, and I prayed I wasn't running toward a dead end. Then a sudden thought hit me, freezing my feet. They were moving like shadows. I was in their territory. What if they knew these woods better than I did? And just as that fear settled in, the ground beneath me gave way into darkness. I stumbled, slipping down a steep incline. I gripped the flashlight, desperate to avoid falling harder than I already had. When I finally came to a stop, I realized I was in a tunnel, damp earth encasing me on all sides. Above, the whispers resumed, echoing through the darkness. Join us. But the voices weren't the only thing I heard. There were footsteps, steady and menacing, closing in. I pressed my back against the cold, damp wall of the tunnel, my breath coming in quick gasps. The footsteps were unmistakable now, a rhythmic thud that sent fresh waves of fear coursing through me. Each sound was deliberate, as if whoever or whatever was up there wanted me to know they were coming. In the faint beam of light from my flashlight, I could see moisture glistening on the walls. The air was thick and heavy, with a musty smell. I glanced around, looking for a way out, but all I saw were shadows dancing in the flickering light. I needed to find a way to escape before whatever was above descended into the darkness with me. Think, I muttered to myself, desperately grasping for a plan. There had to be another way out of this tunnel. I couldn't just sit here and wait. Slow and careful, I stepped deeper into the darkness, the flashlight beam trembling with every move. As I moved, the sound of my shoes squelching through damp earth echoed unnervingly. It was a stark contrast to the silence that had enveloped me in the woods moments ago. I swallowed hard, pushing the thought of the figures out of my mind. Then I saw it, a faint glow shimmering in the distance. Was it an exit? My heart raced and I hurried towards it, ignoring the clenching feeling in my stomach. As I drew closer, I realized it wasn't an exit at all, but a small pool of water, the surface shimmering under the flashlight's glow. I knelt by the pool, captivated by the strange beauty of the scene. But as I leaned in closer, I noticed something unnerving. The water was distinctly dark, and reflections danced on the surface in ways that didn't match my reality. I pulled back sharply. This was no ordinary water. Suddenly the whispers grew louder, almost drowning out the sound of the approaching footsteps. Join us. They were calling again, more insistent this time. I shook my head, trying to clear it. I wasn't their pawn. I had to keep my head. While I debated whether to turn back, the footsteps stopped. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Just above, the figures were silent now. Had they noticed my absence? Were they waiting for me to make the next move? My instinct screamed at me to turn and run, but the pool felt like a trap, and I didn't dare move yet. Then, without warning, the water began to ripple violently, as if something was stirring beneath the surface. Panic gripped me, and I stumbled backward, nearly losing my balance. Whatever was in that water didn't want me to leave. Just as the tension peaked, a loud crash echoed above, resonating through the tunnel like a shockwave. I looked up, heart racing, just in time to see the earth give way at the top, dirt and roots tumbling down into the darkness. My breath caught as I realized they were coming after me. I had no choice. I had to get out. I turned on my heel, sprinting away from the pool, feeling the ground shift beneath my feet. I could hear the whispers growing louder behind me, and the darkness felt alive, reaching, pulling. In my frantic escape, I spotted a narrow opening in the tunnel ahead. I lunged for it, praying it led somewhere safe. I pushed through the tight passage as the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony, demands and threats swirling around me. Just as I squeezed through, I felt a chilling breeze. I wasn't alone anymore. "Join us!" they hissed again, and now it was right beside me. I tumbled into a cramped chamber, my breath hitching as I landed with a thud on the cold ground. The sudden darkness was almost comforting compared to the chaos behind me. I glanced around, trying to regain my bearings, but the walls were rough and the space limited. The only source of light came from the faint glow of phosphorescent fungi clinging to the walls, illuminating grotesque shapes and strange markings. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice hanging in the air, swallowed by the silence. My heart pounded furiously, but it felt different now, like adrenaline was coursing through my veins, fueling my fight-or-flight response. I got to my feet, feeling the dampness seeping through my clothes. I could still hear the whispers echoing faintly from the tunnel I had just escaped. They seemed to be trying to coax me back, but I wasn't falling for it. "I won't join you," I muttered under my breath, gathering my courage. In the flickering glow, I noticed the wall was covered in carvings, symbols that looked ancient and ominous. They twisted and turned in disorienting patterns, almost pulsating in rhythm with the whispers. I moved closer, trying to decipher their meaning. But I didn't want to be drawn into whatever this place was. It felt wrong. The silence around me shifted suddenly. It was a low, guttural sound that sent a jolt of fear straight through me. I spun around, flashlight aimed in every direction, heart racing. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel something electric lurking just out of sight. A shimmer caught my attention. Was it just the reflection of my light, or something else? That's when I saw it. A figure, shadowy and dim, stood at the far end of the chamber. It was daunting, motionless, as if waiting for me to react. My instincts screamed at me to turn and run, yet I couldn't help but stare. Its outline was unclear, yet I could feel its gaze penetrating through the darkness. "Join us," it whispered, as if the words were pulled from the depths of the earth itself. Everything inside me tightened. I took a cautious step back, but the figure remained still, almost amused by my fear. Just then, the ground beneath me trembled, a warning or a threat. I barely had time to react before the whispering swarm flooded back, filling the air with a mesmerizing chant that tantalized my mind. Suddenly, the wall to my left crumbled, dust and debris raining down, scattering the carved symbols into chaos. I had to move. I dashed to the other side of the chamber, feeling the panic take hold again. In this dark space filled with whispers and shadows, I felt cornered. Whatever that thing was, it was part of this nightmare, and it wasn't going to let me leave easily. Then everything went dark. The flickering light from my flashlight sputtered out, and I found myself enveloped in blackness. I could feel the looming presence near me, its breath like icy wind against my skin, wrapping around me. All I had were questions. What did it want? What had I stumbled into? Suddenly, a shout broke through the silence, sending a spike of fear through me. It wasn't just a voice, it was a scream, echoing from the depths of the tunnel beyond. The figure seemed to shift, its attention drawn away from me. I didn't wait another second. I had to escape before my time ran out. I dashed toward the crumbling wall, the sound of the screams and whispers blending into a nightmarish symphony, guiding my way. As I lunged forward, I hoped against hope that the darkness wouldn't consume me whole. As I charged toward the crumbling wall, my heart raced. The screams echoed again, rising and falling like a twisted melody. I pushed against the fallen debris, praying it would give way. The air was thick with dust, and I choked on my breath, panic clawing at my insides. Would I reach freedom, or would I stumble into something worse? The wall shifted slightly, a gap forming large enough for me to slip through. I squeezed my body into the opening, feeling the rough edges scrape against my skin. I didn't stop to look back. I only wanted to escape. On the other side, I landed hard on a damp floor. The darkness enveloped me once again, but the sounds were different here. No whispers, just the fading echoes of those screams. I listened carefully, straining my ears for any sign that might guide my way. Was that a heartbeat I could hear, or just my imagination playing tricks? As I stood there in the darkness, bracing myself, I felt a chill radiate through the room. I switched on my flashlight, the beam flickering weakly to life. The light illuminated more symbols, but these were different, less menacing and more familiar. It was as if they told a story, one I couldn't quite grasp. One carving in particular caught my eye. It depicted a figure similar to the one I'd seen earlier, but this one appeared to be reaching out, its hand open rather than closed in threat. I stepped closer, trying to understand the connection. Why did it seem almost inviting? A shiver ran through me. I had to be careful. Nothing felt right. Suddenly, another sound broke the silence. A low rumble, almost like thunder, but it felt closer than that. The ground trembled again, shaking the walls. I stumbled backward, the light dancing wildly as I fought to keep my footing. This place felt alive, like it was reacting to my presence. With another tremor, the wall opposite me began to fracture. It splintered dramatically, and I barely took a breath before a dark shadow poured through the cracks. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I was frozen, gripped by the fear of what lay ahead. Through the gaping hole, I saw a flicker of movement, more figures emerging from the shadows. They appeared as distorted shapes, flickering at the edges of my vision. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. Were they benign? Or were they the creatures that haunted my thoughts since I first heard that chilling whisper? I need to move, I told myself. This was not a good place to linger. I turned to retrace my steps, but it was too late. Each of the figures seemed to close in, their whispers merging into one continuous chant. "Join us! Join us! Join us!" My heart thundered as I sprinted down the only corridor that remained, an exit leading further into the unknown. Hope might be running low, but survival instincts took over. The echoes chased me, a reminder that the darkness was hungry. Just then, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I gasped and spun around, ready to fight, but all that met me was air. I was alone, and yet I still felt watched. My heart raced with dread. Then, as I pressed deeper into the unknown, something shifted in the air. A voice, one that wasn't a whisper but a call, reached out to me. "Seek the truth before it's too late." I froze, breath hitching once again, as I realized the weight of those words. Who was speaking? What truth? And what would I find if I dared to go further? I took a deep breath and steeled myself. Whatever happened next, I needed answers. But those shadows loomed closer, and I had the eerie feeling I was running out of time. I pushed forward, the corridor narrowing as I ran. The walls were slick with moisture, and the air felt heavier. Each step echoed, almost mocking my urgency. I could still hear the distant chant of the figures behind me, a sinister lullaby that urged me to turn back. But I couldn't go back. Not now. The flashlight flickered, its light weakening. Panic surged as the beam barely illuminated the walls, casting eerie shadows. I felt those shadows tug at my mind, whispering doubts about my choice. What if they were right? What if this was a mistake? I shook the thoughts away, focusing instead on the path ahead. Then I saw it. A glow at the end of the corridor. It was faint, but it called to me. I quickened my pace, driven by a flicker of hope. As I approached, I realized it was coming from a door, slightly ajar. I hesitated, sensing the unease creeping back in. Should I even consider entering? The shadowy figures seemed to dart closer with each second I hesitated. "Join us," they urged again. I clenched my fists, pushing through the doubt. If there was a chance for answers, I had to take it. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was vast, filled with strange artifacts and old, dusty tables. The glow emanated from an object resting on a pedestal in the center. It was circular, a smooth stone with intricate carvings that shimmered in the dim light. As I approached, the air around it felt charged, pulsating almost like a heartbeat. I reached out, drawn by an inexplicable force. Just as my fingers brushed against the stone, a wave of energy surged through me. Visions flashed in my mind, images of the figures, the chanting, and the walls I had just escaped from. They weren't just shadows, they were guardians, protectors of something ancient. The sudden clarity was overwhelming, but then another tremor shook the room, and the door slammed shut behind me. My breath quickened as I turned back to the pedestal. What if this was all a trap? My thoughts raced. What were they protecting me from, or what did they want from me? Then the glow pulsed brighter. I could see the figures of my past, the loved ones I'd lost, the moments I'd failed to grasp. They were trapped in the same cycle of torment as the whispers that had haunted me. It wasn't just about escape anymore. It felt personal. The very essence of my fears was laid bare. Just then, the stone began to vibrate intensely, pulling my attention back. The glowing patterns shifted, forming words that I could almost read, though they faded before I could fully comprehend them. Truth will bind. Fear will release. An overwhelming sensation of dread washed over me. I staggered back, colliding with a table stacked high with artifacts. They clattered to the ground, echoing my alarm. I had to make a choice, confront the fears that held me captive, or succumb to the shadows creeping ever closer. A new whisper filled my ears, a softer voice this time, as if echoing from the stone itself. Embrace the truth. Hurry. That's when everything began to spiral. The shadows lashed out toward me, the glow dimmed, and I felt my heart pounding louder than ever. Time was running out. I had to act fast. The moment I touched the stone, an electric shock ran through my body, and the air crackled. A rush of visions flooded my mind, glimpses of darkness, chaos, and a silhouette that felt familiar. But there was no time to dissect the images. The shadows were closing in, their whispers growing louder. Embrace the truth, the voice urged again, more insistent this time. I took a deep breath, fighting the panic. I had to focus. I had to understand what I was seeing. The room started to swirl, and I stumbled, grasping the pedestal for support. The stone was warm now, pulsating in rhythm with my heart. I could feel it urging me to dig deeper. I shut my eyes tight, hoping that by doing so I could drown out the chaos around me. Suddenly, the stone surface shifted, revealing what looked like a map, a crude depiction of the layout I had just run through. Markings glowed, leading to several points, but one stood out, a large X marked in red. That must be important, but where did it lead? Before I could puzzle it out, the cloaked figures materialized in full around the room. They were a swirl of dark robes with hoods shadowing their faces. They moved silently, circling me like vultures. "Join us! It is time!" they chanted, their voices merging into one haunting sound. My heart raced even faster. "Get back!" I shouted, though my voice trembled. They paused, heads turning slightly as if to assess my fear. It was absurd. I was trying to stand my ground against shadows, my grip tightened around the pedestal. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. The answer felt like it clung to the air, unspoken. In response, the stone flared up, illuminating every corner of the room. The figures shifted slightly, and from among them, one stepped forward. It stood tall, and with a deliberate movement, it raised its arm. A soft glow erupted from its hand, connecting to the stone. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. The chilling weight of dread morphed into something almost inviting. I felt a deep sorrow wash over me, memories flooding back. Then it spoke. "The truth can set you free, but first, the choices you made must be faced." As the words sunk in, the shadows seemed to swirl faster, their chants intensifying. The visions returned, sharper than before. This time, they showed not just glimpses of my past, but choices I had made, paths I had taken. I was forced to witness moments filled with regret. I couldn't take it. "No, stop!" I yelled, squeezing my eyes shut again, desperate to block the images. But it was too late. The shadows lunged, wrapping around me. I felt their ice-cold grip on my shoulders, dragging me down into the depths of my memories. No, this wasn't what I wanted. Just as despair consumed me, I heard the voice from the stone again, clearer now. "Face it, it will bind you, but in binding you will be released." What did that mean? I was losing my grip, almost drowning in the gallery of guilt. I had a choice, to confront or to be consumed. Then everything shifted. I saw the X on the map again, and a sliver of clarity broke through the chaos. Maybe, just maybe, the answer lay in that unpredictable truth. But in the next heartbeat, something, moved behind me. I snapped around, heart thundering. Who was there? I turned, dread flooding my senses. The cloaked figures parted, revealing a tall silhouette behind them. As it stepped into the light cast by the glowing stone, I froze. It was a woman, long hair flowing from beneath her hood, her face still hidden in shadows, but the feeling of familiarity surged again, tightening my chest. "Who are you?" I demanded. My voice wobbled, shaky with fear and desperation. She took a step forward, and the shadows shifted with her, swirling like a storm. "You have to understand," she said, her voice smooth yet haunting. "You cannot run from what you've done. You must confront it." I felt the heat of anger bubble within me. "I'm not running. I'm trying to figure this out." The shadows swirled tighter around me, their coldness numbing my arms and legs. It felt like they were looking for something in me, probing for secrets I didn't want to reveal. I instinctively stepped back, but the way was blocked by the pedestal. The glowing stone pulsed, and I realized it was responding to the tension in the room. "Do you remember?" she continued, tilting her head slightly. "The choice you made? The friend you betrayed?" A wave of realization crashed over me. I knew that moment. It was a dark chapter of my past, one I thought I could escape by simply moving on. The visions rushed back, painful memories of a shattered friendship. "No, I didn't mean to." My voice cracked. I wanted to deny it, but her words held a power I couldn't ignore. "It's time," she insisted. The stone brightened at her words, illuminating the chamber even more. "You must see it for what it is." Suddenly the stone flickered, and the room transformed around us. The cloaked figures faded, and I stood in a familiar place, a shadowy version of my old school hallway. My younger self walked past, oblivious to me, laughing with someone else. I could feel the weight of my guilt pressing down as I watched. "No!" I shouted, reaching out to my past self. "Don't do it!" But she couldn't hear me. My heart sank as I watched myself betray my friend, pushing them away for popularity. The laughter faded into a whisper, replaced by silence that chilled me to the bone. I spun around, desperation clawing at my insides. "Stop this, please!" But the more I begged, the tighter the shadows closed in, constricting around my throat. The woman's voice broke through my panic. "Face it, this is the only way to be free. You must own your past." The shadows squeezed harder, threatening to swallow me whole. I needed to act. I needed the truth. With a roar, I embraced the surge of terror and stepped toward my younger self, determined to confront the pain. But just as I reached out, everything around me faded to darkness. The stone flickered once, and then it went out. Silence enveloped me, and my heart raced in the blackness. "What's happening?" I whispered, fear creeping back. And then I realized it wasn't just an absence of light. Something was coming. I could feel it lurking. "Get out!" I yelled, panic clawing at me. I wasn't alone anymore, and whatever was closing in felt very real. Then something cold brushed against my arm. I gasped, body frozen with dread. I wasn't just facing memories. I was in real danger. What had I unleashed? The darkness shifted, swirling around me, and the cold presence tightened its grip. I was caught in a web spun of my fears. both past and present. Each breath I took felt labored, weighed down by an invisible force that seemed to pulsate in rhythm with the silence. My heart thudded, echoing in the emptiness. "It's not just thoughts," I whispered to myself, feeling the urgency mount. "It's real." I couldn't afford to succumb now. Drawing on that realization, I took a step back, pressing my back against the cold stone wall. I had engaged with my darkness. Now I needed to fight it. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to focus on the dim echoes, the whispers congealing in the void. "I won't join you," I declared, forcing my voice to remain steady. In response, the shadows around me convulsed, as if punctured by my defiance. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I grasped the volume of the air around me. Tension, emotion, history. I took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever was lurking beyond the veil of black. Suddenly a light flickered to life, revealing the chamber around me once more. The stone pedestal stood firm, casting warmth into the space. The carvings along the walls glowed faintly, illuminating the contours of shadowy figures that flitted at the edge of my vision. They felt closer now, more tangible, yet they hesitated. A thought struck me. Perhaps I could use this to my advantage. I needed to harness this eerie energy surrounding me. "You're not just shadows," I breathed, addressing the figures, my voice threading through the air with newfound conviction. "You're my regrets, my choices. I will face you." The room trembled as I spoke. The shadows responded, swirling violently, and for a moment the air filled with their whispers, conflicted, uncertain, feeding off my fear. "Join us. Embrace us," they hissed. But I stood my ground. "I cannot run. I am here to own my past." The figures paused, their tumult quieting as if intrigued by my declaration. The stone flickered again, a pulse echoing the beat of my heart, urging me forward. Whatever these shadows wanted was rooted in deep reflection, and if I could tether that to the truth, perhaps I could channel it. Willing myself to stay anchored in the moment, I knelt by the pedestal, holding my breath as I concentrated on the strange energy emanating from the stone. The air thickened, and I felt the sensations of the past wash over me. Joy, regret, moments of laughter mingled with betrayal. One memory rose above the rest. My once best friend's haunted face as I pushed them away, more concerned with my image than their pain. "I see you," I whispered, directing my thoughts toward that memory. I felt the tendrils of darkness pulling away, surrendering to the truth. "I see what I did. I see you," I pleaded, tears mingling with the oppressive air around me. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't understand." There was a shift, a ripple of light that flickered from the stone. The whispers erupted again, but this time as a chorus. Confrontations and reconciliations. "Face us! Free yourself!" they roared. I lifted my head, my flashlight illuminating the chaos dancing around me. "No!" I screamed, but I was no longer afraid. "You don't control me! I won't be bound by shadows!" The figures shied away, astonished by my sudden resolve. Hope surged through me. Maybe I could reverse this. Could I untangle these threads of chaos woven through my choices? "Let me remember my past, not fear it," I shouted, the light of the stone growing stronger as embers of fiery determination ignited within me. The echoes transformed once again, becoming clearer, charged with resonance. "I take back what I lost." Just as my voice crescendoed, the shadows reacted violently, swirling into a cyclone around me. I felt the rush of energy, and with it a spark ignited deep within the stone. The warmth washed over me, curling around the darkness like a protective embrace. The room shuddered and the figures drew closer, yet there was no fear left in me. Instead, I held my hand over the pedestal, envisioning a path ahead, a vision carved not by betrayal, but by acknowledgement. The shadows shifted, the whispers morphing into unintelligible cries. With a final push, I screamed, "I release you!" The stone reached a blinding brilliance, flooding the chamber with light. And then silence. The light dimmed, revealing the remnants of the room I had just escaped from. I was sprawled on the cabin floor. The faint tapping against the walls ceased, the oppressive air fading. I gasped, drawing in deep breaths, daylight filtering through the window, a sign that the night had relinquished its grip on me. Rising cautiously, I looked around, taking stock of my surroundings. The cabin felt less oppressive than before, a space filled with light instead of shadows. But deep down, I felt the unease lurking. Had I truly escaped that darkness, or would it still haunt me in a different form? I stepped outside, blinking against the sun's brightness, a sense of hope stirring in my chest. The woods felt welcoming now, and as I gazed at the trees shifting gently in the breeze, I knew I would carry this with me. My heart still ached from the betrayal of my past, but now I understood. I would face it, not run from it. Yet as I turned to leave, a chill ran down my spine. Did I really evade whatever had followed me into that darkness? Or had it transformed, waiting for another chance to emerge when I least expected? I glanced back toward the woods, feeling the weight of untold stories clinging to the air. How much truth could be uncovered under the dark canopy? Embracing the day's light, I stepped forward, still uncertain but desperate to discover what lay ahead.